Well, I'm not sure if you've been waiting for this video, but my goodness, it feels like it's been on my plate for forever. Today, I'm finally going to give you guys like a full-on video, full-on review of the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. I've had this now for basically a month, and this video has it all. This video is gonna have in-depth swatches. I wanna do some just showing you comparisons of the other Natasha Denona palettes that are out there. I ended up in a different video recreating the Natasha Denona palette with singles that I have, so I'm gonna show you some swatch comparisons. Thought that'd be fun. And I did that dupe palette with just looking at photos online instead of actually referencing this palette, and I kind of show you how close I got just using photos. I thought that would just be, I don't know, a fun little addition to this video. Why not make it longer, right? I also do 5 different looks in here. I initially was like, am I gonna do 7? Am I gonna do 5? And the fact that this video was supposed to go out a while ago, like I thought, oh, I'll just film them every day, 1 look a day. No, that's not what ended up happening. So I have 5 looks though to show you guys. They're all very much in my style and kind of simple, but just the inspiration that I pull from this palette, this very green and orange and kind of swampy, interesting color story. So I hope those will be inspirational to you guys if you picked up the palette and have it at home, or you're using your own dupes or similar, you know, situations out there. I also want to mention before we get into it that I actually do have a code now on Natasha Denona's website. So you can use the code LMB15 to save 15% off if you're going to purchase off of her website, which I'm really excited about. That is an affiliated code. So when you shop through there, I do make a commission, but obviously no pressure, as with all my codes. I'm really happy too, because that is a long-standing code. So whenever you're ready, whenever you want to buy, if you're going to buy from her website, that code is available for you guys to save some money. So that is super exciting. But I think that's everything before we get into the video. So let's just get into the swatches and we'll go from there. All right, starting off, this is the Yucca palette, and as you can see, it's very green inspired. Some really pretty shimmers, which that's what we're starting off with. First, we have Plantasia, and this is a beautiful red-based kind of duochrome sparkly shade. I really love this. It's like that kind of green gold sparkle on top of that warm red base. It's something I've definitely seen before, but I feel like this is a really pretty version of it, and it's nice and wearable, really beautiful. These names are trying to play me, but next we have the shade Calathea, and this is one of those cream to powder shadows. So it looks a little dark in the pan, but it's not nearly as dark swatched out. You kind of have to build it up. This is a deeper yellow green though, kind of gives an olive tone. Next we have Komorebi, and this is another one of those, like this is probably my favorite shadow in the whole palette. Like I think it's stunning. It's a really beautiful soft green. It has some of the prettiest sparkle in here, honestly. It almost has something rainbow going on in that there's something kind of gold and orange, a little bit of a blue sparkle, a little bit of a cool silver sparkle, a little bit of a gold sparkle, like lots of different sparkles going on in this, but overall it does look like a nice like light lime green, and it's beautiful. Like absolutely love it. Next is Acacia. This is a matte shade. It's a yellow olive green, definitely has a lot of yellow to it. And then last, one of my absolute favorite mattes in the palette, like my favorite matte for sure, but also just another one of my favorite shadows, Camu Camu. This is a chartreusey acidy green. It's no secret I love these shadows. My nails are currently this color. This is a little bit more of like a pastel version or like subdued version of something with a lot of punch to it, but I really feel like you can build this shadow up and get that like opacity, and it turns a little bit more limey actually like on my lids. Moving on to the second row, we have Tipu, and this is another kind of olive green, but this one's even more yellow than Acacia. It's also lighter in tone as well. Next we have Elysian, which is a beautiful cool tone kind of gray shadow. It also though does have a little bit of like a golden and silver sparkle in it. This is another one of those really beautiful shades. I love using this as a one shadow look, and I also like to use it as a shade to kind of deepen up other looks that I do. Even though it's a shimmer, I think it works really well for that, for me anyway, for that like tiny bit of depth that I want. Moving on, we have the shade Valley. This is just kind of a pretty classic brown. This has a little bit more yellow maybe to it than other browns, but just a nice staple brown. Then we have Citrine, which is the most like acidy olive to date in the palette that we've swatched. This one definitely has a swampiness to it, a grunginess to it for sure. Very interesting, very unique, I feel like, especially for palettes that would be at Sephora. Very fun color there. This is the shade Ray, and this is more of like a metallic or even a satin, so it doesn't have as much sparkle as the other shimmers that I've talked about. It has more of like a glow to it, and it's like not quite a foiled metallic, but a little bit stronger than a satin, so it kind of falls somewhere in between. tone, at least for me, looking at texture. And it has a nice golden hue to this green, so I think that one's really pretty as well. Moving on to the last row though, next we have Flax, which is definitely the darkest brown in the palette and kind of is one of the darkest shades in the palette in general. Willow, which we'll come to in a second, is also a little bit dark if you build it up, but I guess I would say Flax is probably the most depth you're gonna get in the palette. Then we have Fuchsia, and this is a warm orange, so it's like almost a yellowy orange because there's a lot of yellow to it, and it isn't super dark, but this is one of those cream to powders as well. Very fun color. I really like that one for summer. It's like very sunshiny. I feel like it takes on a bit of a grunge tone in here, but if it were in a different palette, again, I think it'd look a lot brighter. The last shimmer in the palette is Maquia, and this is a darker based, almost like a blue gray based green gold shimmer, if that makes sense. So again, that base on it is darker than the actual shimmer that sits on top, and the shimmer that's there is like golden and green, has like a yellow tone to it, but again, still very green. Then we have the shade Ixia, which is like an orangey brown color. So it looks brown if you put it next to oranges, but if you put it next to browns, you're like, that's definitely orange. And then the last in here, we have the shade Willow, which is a nice cool toned green, has a lot of blue in here. So it almost looks like a jungle green. It doesn't have all that yellow that so many of the other tones in here have. And I really like the addition of this because it just lets you go a little bit different with some of the other topper shades and also like shimmers that are in here. And so that is the palette in its entirety. You can see from the swatches, there's lots of green in here, but lots of fun tones for sure. Now we're moving on to the comparison. So I just wanted to hold up each of the Natasha Denona palettes that I have. That way you guys can see what they look like just in pan form compared to the other palettes. If you're piecing out this palette from other Natasha Denona shades and palettes, I think you could get something relatively close, but I don't think anything quite captures this exact color story in itself. But I hope seeing the palettes next to each other is helpful for you guys. All right, so here is my dupe palette. If you want to see how I created this, I'm going to leave the video I did faking new palettes down below, so you can check that out. I also do the ABH Cosmos palette, but I don't know how I want to quite do this, but I thought I'd just go across real fast and then I'll swatch it out, obviously, for you guys. For the first shade here, I feel like I have a pretty good dupe going, just looking at it in the pan. Same for this next shadow, very similar. These ones are pretty close as well. I mean, not exact, but pretty good. This is where we're seeing a pretty big difference. It'll be interesting to see how this swatches out though, because I feel like Natasha Denona matte swatch a little bit darker. And then Camu's very, very similar. If they have this shade, if that's like the only one you want, I will try to specifically find that and link that. And I know it's from Shop Miss A, I just don't know if they still have it. Same kind of thing with these mattes, a little bit different here, not only in tone, but also kind of, this is more yellow, this is more neutral, but it'll be interesting to see. These are pretty similar. I have a feeling the Natasha Denona one's gonna be a little bit cooler and a little bit darker. Moving on, mattes are off again, mattes are off again. These are also off. I'm interested to see how they swatch though. I'm kind of going out of order here, but closer than I thought with that like jungly blue green. I can't wait to swatch it. My orange is a little more saturated in my singles than it is in the Natasha Denona palette, but again, will this swatch darker? We'll see. These aren't too bad. This is pretty close, and that's actually pretty spot on. Maybe mine's a little bit warmer, but I feel like overall, by just going off of photos online, I did not look at my palette to do this. I just did online as if I didn't have the palette because I just wanted to see. I'm pretty dang happy with this. I feel like mine's maybe a little more saturated, a little bit more colorful. It leans just a little less neutral, but overall pretty dang close. So let's swatch it out and see how they actually look. All right, here we are with the swatches, you guys. There is a lot going on here. In some ways, they are closer than I thought, and in other ways, they are more different. I find it interesting that there are a few sparkles in here that beat out my singles from the Natasha Denona palette. I feel like Plantasia, that one is stunning. I also really love Komorebi, that one's kind of hard for me to say, but those two specific shimmers are just so good, you guys. Like, I love those so much for easy everyday look. So those two alone. Also Camu's like such a better shadow. It is more pigmented. I'm sure on a base, you know, this isn't going to work great, but I love to see that saturation there. And, you know, it's making me really look at this palette as like, this is pretty adventurous for Natasha Denona, I feel like anyway. I was also shocked by this last swatch here in my palette. I really thought this was too blue, but it was like spot on. If anything, this one's like deeper, and I feel like more pigmented, at least in a specific swatch. These oranges were pretty spot on. These browns were pretty dang close. I was also shocked even by these two, how similar they are. The single over here, which the names will be down below on these shadows, but this one looked like it was gonna be way different. And it is more saturated on this side, like more saturated in like color, but still really close. As for what I feel like really wins on the single shadow side, I do prefer this taupey shimmer. This one's just a little bit dark, and I've had some experience using it already. These are completely different, like just completely different. I prefer Brocade over here. And just in general, I feel like I was able to give my palette maybe a little bit more pops of depth. Like this shade's darker. This one up here is a big shocker. Like when I was watching that, I was like, oh yeah, it's a cream formula. So this one doesn't nearly have the depth it maybe looks like it will in the palette. But overall, a really fun challenge, very interesting, the results, and I'm very, very happy with it. So I hope you guys just enjoyed that little added bonus to this video. Hello everyone, we're all zoomed in. I'm gonna be doing look number 1 for this video, but this is technically my second look. I'm so sorry, my voice is so rough this morning. Man, I'm getting an early start, for me anyway. So I'm gonna do something so basic. I really wanna use the silvery cool tone shade, the one kind of misfit in here. And I wanna use a little bit of the dark brown called Flax. So that's the main focus of today's look. We're going for clean, we're going for simple. That's what I want to do. So I'm already primed and everything, and actually for my like kind of transition, I'm going in with just the bronzer I used today. This one's from LH Cosmetics. This is the Infinity Bronzer in the shade Luminous. This is definitely a lot warmer than some of the tones we're going to be using, but I think it's going to work together really well nonetheless. So I'm really just getting a little bit of a base down so I have a smoother transition. And really for this palette and like the looks I'm going to be doing, I really do just want the looks to be wearable. I really want to explore what I would truly do, whether I'm on film or not, and show you guys realistic, at least again for me, everyone's realistic is so different, but what is a realistic look for me? How am I incorporating these colors? And then I feel like I can give you a better idea on what's worth it and what's not. So I have that down, and I'm just gonna go straight in with Elysian, which is that gray kind of color. I really love the shimmers in this palette so far because they do all have a bit of a sheer quality to them, which I really love. It makes them really workable. You can sheer them out, you can build them up, whatever you want. I'm tapping this all over my eye, even into where I blended the bronzer. I'm not trying to have that demarked. I just wanted that little bit underneath to help with transitioning. I'm using this little brush from Sigma. It's the Edge Precision. Because of my nails, it's hard to like get into the inner corner, and I was thinking maybe this would help a little bit. And then I'm going to use it to kind of just blend again into the bronzer. And then I'm just actually blending with a real blending brush because that brush was kind of weird for truly blending. And I kind of like it being sheared out in this way as I blend. So I'm kind of okay with the color fading a little bit. And I'm actually just going to take this small brush. This is the 211 from BK Beauty. I'm going to go into Flax very lightly, and I'm just going to be blending that into my outer corner. I did this color last because I really wanted to just have control over it. I don't want this eye look to get too dark, and sometimes blending on top of a shimmer that's already down can kind of naturally diffuse it. You could also diffuse it by putting it down first and then putting the shimmer over it, but do whichever way you want. I feel like this like combination would be very common for me to use in this palette because I like these kinds of tones, and I feel like this specific combination also so far could be night or day, like depending on the intensity you do either of the shadows can really change the look. All right, so here we are. Let's get real. This is really the look overall. I'm tempted to add a green. I don't know if I want to do like a shimmery green or if I want to add the matte green. I think that would just be so pretty, and I feel like any neutral look you do, pop a green in the inner corner, perfect. I think today though, I'm gonna take this shade here, this kind of shimmery green called Komorebi. I'm probably doing a really horrible job, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you guys know this, I was in block linguistics when I was in high school. Literally because I'm bad at pronunciation. And I'm using a fluffy brush on that so that it kind of fluffs it. I'm gonna add a little bit of Camu as well. And I'm taking that same inner corner shade and I'm kind of like tapping it in the center of my lid. I wasn't expecting to do that, but here we are. I probably shouldn't have done that. I'm gonna go back over with the gray. It looked good, don't get me wrong, but I don't want the lid to be green today. So I'm just tapping over it, no big deal. Okay, I think that's the look. I'm going to add a little bit of this highlighter from Natasha Denona on the brow bone, and that gives me just another opportunity to really blend. For my lower lash line, I'm gonna put a little bit of Rose Glow from Pixie, mostly in that outer corner, and I'm just going to smudge that out with my finger. I'm also wiggling a little in between my lash line. And now mascara, I'm just using the L'Oreal Telescopic today. I realized this whole time I didn't have a lip gloss on. I'm using this one from Sigma. It's in the shade Hush, and it has like that pH thing. Let me zoom in so you can see the final look. This is it. I did add a little bit of mascara to the bottom lash line, just on the outer corner. That's what I like to do lately if I do anything on the bottom lash line. I really like the way this looks. It's super blended, and I really like that. I think that makes it more wearable. Instead of having like a more defined outer corner, I feel like this makes it feel a little bit more wispy, again a little bit more wearable, but you could easily add like a wing. I think that'd be a great addition. I also think like you could take out the green and just do a regular inner corner if you want something completely neutral out of this palette. So I feel like there's some like other substitutions and options you could do even within this look, but I hope you guys enjoyed this one. And here it is all zoomed out in case you wanted to see it, but let's move on to look number 2. Hello everyone, welcome to day 2. Today I decided to do a voiceover because I just wanted to get the eye look on, and I hope you don't mind, but I felt like this was the easiest way to actually get all these looks filmed. So I really wanted to do like an orange eye today, so I started off with a eyeshadow base. I'm using this one from ColourPop called Honey BB, and this is just like a nice golden champagne. It's a great base, and I was really wanting to do an orange look, so that's where I started. I first took a little bit of Fuchsia on my brush and did a little bit of like a light halo eye, so some on the outside, some on the inner corner, and just blended that out. I felt like it blended out really nicely. It's a very warm yellowy orange. For a little bit more depth on my inner and outer corner, I went in with Ixia on the inner and outer corner. I did switch to a smaller brush when I was blending it just closer to my inner corner because it's a little bit of a smaller area and I didn't want to get it everywhere. I wanted more precision. So definitely, you know, switch up your brushes, and I think brushes can be a big tool to help you get the look that that you want. As for the color that I decided to put on the lid, I went with Plantasia because of the fact that it has a little bit of a red base, and I thought that would blend really nicely into the oranges. So I just tapped that with my finger into the center of my eye, kind of blended it out a little bit, and that is mostly the eye look in terms of the palette. I did add a little bit of highlighter on my brow bone, a little bit of highlighter on my inner corner. I went in with a liner from Yes Style, but it's from the brand McQueen. It's the number 4 liner, so just a little bit of that as a tight line. And I did end up adding a little bit of a wing using the shade Flax from the palette. It's not very dark, and that is something I'm noticing. There's not like a super dark shade, which is kind of surprising because I feel like Natasha Denona usually has one of those deep dark shades in her palettes, but this one, it works okay as a wing, but definitely not quite as dark as maybe I would have hoped for, but we're making it work. And I added some mascara. I used the L'Oreal Telescopic, and that's really the look. So simple, so easy. I kind of wanted to do something a little bit more warm, and I feel like we'll see throughout the different looks that I'm doing, I wanted to explore different color stories outside of just straight up green. Like, we're gonna do a green look. I want to do like an all matte green look. That's something I'm interested in, but I just want to play around with different color stories in here, different color combinations, and really get a feel for it, and also do it in a way that I feel like is really wearable for every day, because I want to try to make my eyeshadow looks for every day so that I actually want to wear them. So this is what I came up with for a little bit of an orange look. I really like it. I hope you guys do too. And I feel like the green in that Plantasia really pops, you know, it's like golden but very much green at the same time. And while I was using this, I thought that these would pair really nicely with the bronze palette because I kind of wanted more of a neutral, and I thought that would be kind of fun. But anyway, that's the look, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's move on to the next one. All right, I'm actually going to set down my primer a little bit. I'm going to go in with this shade from the Sigma and Angela Bright palette. I just don't want anything really too tacky for shadow to cling onto when it comes to the mattes I'm gonna use. I really want a nice smooth blend. I want to do something with Komorebi. I want to do something with that and a little bit of mica. I'm also gonna use just like some olive, so that's kind of the vibe. I zoomed to Sensi a little closer. I'm gonna go in with Acacia first, and I'm taking this kind of pinched brush, and I'm gonna focus this just on my outer part of my eye. And then as I have like less and I'm kind of building it up, I'm gonna bring it into the crease and kind of blend. I think I'm gonna take some citrine to kind of blend that out and blend it in a little bit. That color definitely adds quite a bit of like yellow, like a yellowy touch. Taking a smaller brush, I'm going back in with that Acacia shade just to kind of deepen up. I really want that outer corner to be deep enough with this color. I don't want to go deeper, but I want this to stand out next to citrine. I'm taking the first brush I used and I'm just blending everything out. I'm taking Komorebi and I'm tapping that on the inner part of my eye. Ooh, so pretty. And then I'm gonna take this shade here, the other shimmer, and kind of tap it toward the outer half. Now I'm tapping more of Acacia just on top of all that, and I'm just tapping blending. That's how I like to blend once I have shimmers down. All right, for the lower lash line, I'm going in with the Jones Road. This is the Pencil and Ivy. I'm also gonna take that a little bit on the top line and also kind of tight line. And then I'm blending out with my finger. I'm gonna do matte on my inner corner. So I'm gonna take the Camu shade and I'm just placing that on that inner corner. Usually I like shimmer, but this is light and bright enough that it gives a similar pop even without the shimmer. I'm also kind of blending that into that lid shade. And I decided I'm going to take that Komorebi, I have to keep saying it, and I'm going to put that in this in-between part of my lash line. Maybe not quite bright enough with the rest of the look, but I'm committed at this point. And I think I'm going to take this darkest shade here, Calathea, and I'm just going to smudge that on the lower lash line. I'm going to add some mascara and I'll show you guys the final look. All right, I like the look. I'm going to add a little brow bone highlight. I'm using the shade Bright, again from that Sigma and Angela Bright palette, just so I have a little bit of lift on my brow bone. All right, here's the final look. Let me zoom you in. I'm just wearing lip balm too. I'm not even wearing any lip product really, but this is it. I really like it. It's very green, but this is a green that I would do. I mean, this is a lot of steps and I feel like a more done up eyeshadow look than I've done in a little bit, but I still really like it and it still feels like wearable to me while still definitely being green. I love, 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 love that Camu shade on the inner corner. So pretty. And I love the lid shade shade. All of this was so easy to blend and to do. Like, I feel like sometimes at the beginning of a look, it gets a little scary when you're blending stuff on the outer corner, like, will this turn out? But it totally comes together. I promise. Just keep going. Just keep going. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this look. Let's move on to look number 4. All right, hi guys, we're on to look number 4. I am going to do an all matte look. Maybe a little shimmer on the inner corner. We'll see. We'll see. I'm just priming currently so that I have a nice base to work with. All right, now that that's done, I'm gonna use the liner in Camu Camu to lay down a base because I'm gonna put Camu Camu all over my lids. That's what I'm hoping. I don't know how this is gonna like blend out. It's just a sharpenable pencil, so we'll see. I feel like this could have been a mistake though, to be honest. I'm just gonna use my finger because I don't want this to dry down too fast, which I think it might already be doing. Yeah, it's definitely looking a little scaly. I'm gonna see if I can use like a domed brush, kind of get it on and see. Yeah, no. I've only used this liner a few times. You guys have seen me. I liked it in the waterline. You know, I liked it okay as a liner, but it's definitely not something that's kind of working as a base. It's just already so dry, and then I don't feel like, I don't know, it just gets kind of patchy. But I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna see if I can save this look somehow. It's like so sticky. Okay. Yeah, that definitely, I highly don't suggest, don't do that. As for my lid, I'm taking this brush. This is from Bodyography. I'm gonna take Camu Camu. It already has that color on it. Actually, I used it for my inner corner the other day. And I am just layering this on top. I do feel like it's layering nicely, and I'm not finding it to be too patchy really. So that's good. Silver lining here. I just felt like this color might not layer well, but I should have known from the inner corner. It probably could have handled it on its own. But I also wanted to test that liner, you know? I wanted to see the limits of that, and it definitely has some limits. I'm just getting a rough shape. I'll probably go through and blend just the edges with a different brush, but I really wanted something that kind of packed the color down because it was a little patchy. For the blend, I'm using this Refer brush. I literally don't know what it is because it's rubbed off. I've had it that long, but I'm just going to take a little bit of product and just start blending out the edges. I couldn't tell if I wanted to do something graphic. I think that's like a fun idea, is to kind of like really have some harsh lines with this. That would be really a cool look as well. But y'all know I like something blended a lot of the time, something kind of blown out. So I'm really just using this to blend the edges best I can. I don't know what I want to do. I think I want to add a little bit of a wing, but maybe I'll do my mascara first. I've been liking to do that. So let me add some mascara. Well, you know what? I just had an idea. I think I'm going to layer Diamond Balm on top of this. I'm sorry, it's not matte. I'm going to add some mascara first so you can kind of see what the look would be like if I kept it matte, you know? I might add a little inner corner as well, but I'm not gonna put the sparkle on until later. All right, here's the look so far. I am gonna add a little bit to my inner corner. I'm using the Bright shade from the Sigma and Angela Bright palette, and I'm really just spotlighting it right in that inner corner. I decided I wanna take just a wash of it on the brow bone as well. All right, so that would be the look if you kept it here, but I am gonna go in with the Diamond Balm, which is just like a clear kind of wet look. Look, my nails match. Anyway, I'm just gonna tap this on for that extra little bit of shimmer. And that's the difference. So one eye with it and one eye matte. This is one of the reasons I love the Diamond Balm so much. I mean, this is kind of similar to Cosmic from Urban Decay and the Moon Dust, but it's so nice just to add a little bit of a clear sparkle. It has no base on it, so you don't have to worry about it really changing the color underneath. It's just adding that kind of crystal white sparkle on top. And I'm gonna leave the look here. I know it's kind of boring or whatever. Maybe I'll add a liner. I don't know. I really thought I had this look all figured out, and here I am. I don't have a black in front of me. I feel like that's what I would prefer kind of, but I think I'm just gonna take this deepest shade in the palette and see how that does. It's definitely gonna have some contrast compared to the green since it's so light. All right, not entirely sure those wings are even, but I'm actually gonna leave it here, okay? This is the final look. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me zoom you out. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of a better picture, but here it is. I just love that shade. That's like one of the selling points of the palette to me, so I'm glad I did a look just completely featuring it, even if I have some other looks featuring it. I think it's just so pretty, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let's move on to the last look, look number 5. All right, we're on to the final look, you guys. I'm so excited to do this one, and I am gonna do like a deconstructed halo eye type thing. I might have already done this. Like, I've been filming this video for a while. I can't lie to you guys, to keep it 100, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna do something though with this like forest green, even this darker green, and I'm gonna use one of the shimmery green shades on the lid, and I think it's gonna look stunning. So I'm so excited. I've already primed my lids, and I think I want to start off with actually a little bit of a cream shadow. I'll keep you guys zoomed in a little bit more. I'm using this one from e.l.f. So I'm going to just use this as a way to get down some depth right off the bat. I know it looks scary. I should blend, actually. I'm no talking. We at least got it somewhat blended out. I was getting a little nervous. I don't know why I felt so, honestly, just kind of ballsy to do that. To just lay down a locking down cream shadow like it's nothing, willy-nilly. Like, what am I doing here? I am just risking everything today. Anyway, I just wanted to get a bit of a base down. I've really been enjoying that lately, so I am going to now go into, I'm going to start with the cream green. So this one here, which has more yellow to it, this one has more blue. I like the idea of the blue a little bit more, but I'm gonna go in with the other one that's a cream first and just kind of layer that on top. I am not trying to do a super structured halo eye, so I don't want it to go up too high necessarily. I do have this thing from Half Magic that I've thought about using to kind of like, you know, get more of like a wing shape, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna try doing that, but it's kind of difficult to hold all this shit while also looking in a mirror, so forgive me if this is really strange. I'm just trying to do, at least get a little bit of an idea. And I know this looks so messy right now. Literally do not worry, because we're going to be adding the shimmer, which I feel like does honestly forgive quite a bit, and that's kind of the vibe. Like, this is supposed to be a little grungy, a little bit lived in, you know? We're going for that. I'm gonna leave that there. I'm now just taking a brush with nothing on it, and I'm just literally blending what we have down just to keep edges soft. Same brush. It's getting muddy over here. I'm taking the Willow shade now, and I'm gonna start using that on the inner and outer corner. And this is gonna add more blue. And if you're wondering what the hell brush I'm using, this is the BK Beauty 207, and I really like it. It's nice and dense. This, I believe, is the travel size though, because it's like a shorter brush, but I like this in the full size as well. It's nice to pack down some color if you're really trying to like get color on the eye. But it still can blend, but it's also not too large, which I like. So I get the precision, but I still have that density I need without it being like a pencil brush. All right, I'm going back to that clean brush, and again, just kind of blending everything out. I really like how I'm keeping this a little bit lower. I already have hooded eyes, and I usually bring things higher up in my crease to give the illusion of my crease being up there instead of doing it at my natural crease. So I have more like lid space, all that, but I kind of like how this is giving me almost this like straight across kind of look. That's what I was going for, silhouette wise. Now for the lid, I think I'm gonna use Komorebi. I think that's how you say that. I looked it up. I'm going to tap that. Yeah, I'm just tapping that on with my finger. I am tapping a little bit on the inner and outer just to blend. And like I said, it's kind of that like oil slick look. So I'm okay with a little bit of that shimmer moving. I'm taking what I call a pinched fluffy brush, which is really just like a lid, like a shader brush, but it has a little bit more fluff to it than something that's super dense and kind of stiff. I'm going back into Willow, which is that cool toned bluey green. And I'm just tapping that with very light pressure over the shimmer that we already laid down. I'm doing the outer corner first because this brush is kind of big. And then I'm gonna still use it on my inner corner, but I am being very careful to not bring it up too high since, again, my eyes are small and this is kind of big. And really light pressure, not a lot of product on my brush. I'm really just adding a little bit of depth there. And I think that's like everything I'm gonna do. I do want to add a little bit of a highlight, so I'm gonna go grab a highlighter really fast because I just want to use something really natural, not too much shine to it. I'm gonna use MAC Soft and Gentle, and I'm just going to be putting that on my brow bone and kind of blending down. This is a new brush. All right, I'm gonna add some mascara. I'm also actually gonna add a little inner corner. I've just been using this palette so much, so I'm gonna use the bright shade. And I'm using a small, fluffier brush so I get some nice diffusion. I'm just sitting here being like, maybe I should add Camo Camo. Taking that same little brush and just right on this inner corner, I'm just kind of painting it because it's kind of dark here anyway. So I feel like this will give it maybe a little bit of life, a little bit of something. I don't want to do too much though. This brush is really nice for detail work. Okay, I'm gonna add mascara now and I'll show you the final look. All right, well, hopefully that's even enough. I'm gonna leave the look here. I do really like it. I think though I could even go a little bit darker or something. Maybe that would give me the tiniest bit more depth. I like that I left the lash line underneath, just clear, because I've just been enjoying my looks that way a little bit more. I feel like sometimes when I do the bottom lash line, I feel like my eyes just look heavier and I end up not liking it throughout the day, you know, like especially in natural light and all that, it can just look a little bit heavier, a little bit darker than I intend. So I like that I left that a little bit just cleaner, a little brighter, and I love the look. I love that little pop of green. I love the shimmer shade. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Okay, I'm gonna leave it here. Let me give you guys some thoughts on this palette. All right, guys, well, I've had this palette about a month. I've been doing multiple looks, did 5 for this video alone, not to mention all the other looks I've done with this since I've had the palette, and I'm ready to give some thoughts on it. First, I love so many of the shimmers in here, specifically Plantifolia and Komorebi. I really love those. I love Elysian. I do feel like Macchia and Ray are a little bit different in formula. The other 3 that I first mentioned have more of that sparkle texture. They're semi-sheer, you know, my style. So those are like one shadow looks for me if I'm just wanting to do something extremely simple. But I find all 3 of those also pair nicely with any of the mattes that are in here. They're just stunning. They have a nice sparkle. Like, I'm very much into them, and I do feel like it's a little bit different than some of the other formulas that we've seen. I mean, some of her palettes have had these before, but I feel like this is the most in a palette, which has me oh so excited. You gotta like green for this palette, okay? So I would say if you're asking yourself if you want this, should you get this, like, you need to look within and you need to be like, how many green looks do I like? Like, truly, am I wanting to do green eyeshadows? Because that's what's in here. I know that it looks maybe more neutral than it could be, all that. Maybe it's the outer packaging, or maybe you just have a lot of Natasha Denona palettes and a lot of them are neutral, so you're assuming this one will lean more neutral. I'm telling you, this is very, very green toned. And then if you don't do greens, you're gonna do maybe a cooler taupey look or maybe an orangey look, like a warm orangey look. And if you love those looks, you're gonna love this palette. I do really love all the looks that I came up with for this, but I will say for my everyday, I tend to go a little bit more neutral, especially nowadays. And so I find myself reaching for this more for pops, and specifically, I'm sure you guys can guess it, the Camo Camo shade is like what I want to pop everywhere, every time, whether it's all over the lid on its own, inner corner, lash line, a little bit like on the edge of a blend or something. Like, I just love that shade, and I'm so excited that it's in here. It's completely matte, but I feel like it's nice and buildable. Like, I love that shade so much. I also do love though the cool tone look I can get with Elysian and the taupes that are in here, like the brownie taupes that are in here. I love the orange looks that I've done with this palette. So there's a little bit of versatility in that. Like, you can do something green or do something completely not green for sure, but it's a lot of green. It's a lot of green. So you gotta like green. And a lot of these go a little bit more yellow. There's a few more blues in here, but definitely more of like a warmer green look overall than something more cool and blue green, like you're getting more in the retro glam. I think that's what it's called. That being said, I've been really happy with this palette, and I do think it's a great addition to my collection personally. I do own so many of the Natasha Denona palettes. I love that you can rearrange these. If you guys don't know, I'll try to leave a video of me rearranging different Natasha Denona palettes down below. but I think that's so fun, and I do think there are some great colors in here. If that's something you're thinking about, or if you kind of buy into the Natasha Denona universe, you know, you can add these as singles to your collection, move things around, change things out seasonally or as you are feeling. And I do feel like that's a really big benefit specifically with Natasha Denona when we're talking about brands that are sold at Sephora or a more mainstream. I love that if you want to, you can kind of re-inspire yourself, recreate the products you already have, breathe new life into them. It's pretty unique and a really fun aspect that is kind of more pro oriented, or I feel like geared toward pro makeup artists, but I feel like it can be a really fun thing for anyone as well at home. It's really fun to move them around. I just personally love that. I noted in a video where I was putting this on for the first time, my first impressions, I'll try to leave that link down below as well, that I was getting a little bit of burning from this, or that's what I thought. And I really haven't had anything quite like that since that video. So I'm not sure if my eyes were just super sensitive that day, which can be a thing. My eyes get very dry. They can get very sensitive. So I haven't really experienced that, which makes me very happy because I really hadn't experienced that with Natasha Denona before. So I'm happy to say that seems to have been a fluke, or it's a non-issue currently for me. So that makes me so happy. And overall, I'm really happy with this palette. I love that it's a midi size. I know the midis have gone up to $69, but I do obviously like that it's not in the big size, which tend to be almost $130. Who knows what they'd be priced at now with like everything going up in price. So I love that it's in the midi format. I think the outside packaging is really pretty. I love the inspiration for this, and I kind of like that we got something not super neutral necessarily, and also not entirely monochromatic. I feel like we've been seeing a lot of, maybe, I'm not sure if this is actually true, but it feels like a lot of palettes lately have been coming out that are more monochromatic, and I feel like there is at least some places to go. I wish there was maybe a little bit more depth in this palette, but overall, again, really happy with it. I'm glad I picked it up, and it's a palette I want to have in my rotation, like kind of have a pop or whatever, but I don't think that this is like an everyday staple for me, in that unless I'm like on a green kick, this is more a once a week palette for a pop, for some fun, than it is like an everyday palette. So I think you just have to decide how it will work for you. But like I mentioned at the beginning, I do have a code for Natasha Denona's website. If you're going to buy it from there, that'll save you 15%, which is awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. I'd love to know any of your thoughts. I know I'm like very behind on this video, so I'm sure for anyone who's bought it, you probably, I don't know, I feel like people have either bought it or haven't yet. So let me know your thoughts on the palette. How have you gotten on with it? How have you been exploring it and enjoying it? I'd love to know. I've definitely had some fun creating looks, and I hope that they were really wearable and like easy to follow, but still kind of inspiring and fun for you guys. Like, I hope that you get that from it. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.